Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
June 26, 2020, the 13 billion to 0 in 5 days edition. And we're going to start with that story, which is Wirecard yesterday filed for insolvency proceedings. This is 5 days after it announced that it couldn't find $2 billion in cash, which of course never existed. Nevertheless, shares in Wirecard crashed 70% since the announcement last Thursday, meaning the company's market value had evaporated to under $500 million from over $14.5 billion a week ago. That's a pretty stunning collapse, and the company is not solvent at $500 million, so go figure. This is just one of the biggest frauds that we have seen in some time, and it's certainly a black eye for the German regulators. It's a case we're going to follow, and with great interest. Next up, Edward Luce, the always prescient columnist for the Financial Times, wrote a interesting column that showed entitled "Routine Outrages Show a Country is Still Haunted by Confederate Ghosts." So I certainly understand as a Southerner that the South has never been de-Confederalized. Nazi Germany was de-Nazified, but as William Faulkner said, the past isn't dead, it's not even past yet. So that is one of the problems in the United States, is that somehow we never came to grips with that, and it's now the time of reckoning. So will the South ever be de-Confederalized? Probably, if you ask most white Southerners, the answer would be no. But starting with Emmett Till in 1955 up into George Floyd, you see exactly how Southerners feel about Confederate heroes, Confederate monuments, the Confederate flag, and indeed all things Confederate. Next up, from the Wall Street Journal, Novartis and some subsidiaries settled some significant FCPA violations. The settlement was $347 million plus. It involved Novartis's Greek subsidiary and their eye unit, Alcon. The bribery schemes were pretty interesting. They were largely paying and overpaying doctors to go to alleged conferences where they engaged in lavish spending. They also paid doctors to write Novartis prescriptions, but they disguised those payments as payments for academic papers, which were never written. So interesting bribery schemes by Novartis. The eye unit, Alcon, got into trouble in Vietnam and South Korea, and there they funded bribes through distributors. So I'm going to be taking a deep dive into that on my blog, on the FCPA Compliance and Ethics blog. I start with a background today, an introduction, and we'll be taking a deep dive over the next week. So check that out. And our final story is Jay Clayton, who testified on Capitol Hill that he is fully committed to his job at the SEC, and the insanity that William Barr engaged in by trying to illegally fire Jeffrey Berman was not his doing, and that he was not going to take the position, and that he was going to stay at the SEC. What that means for the SEC is unknown. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.